Denise McGillvary is a Cree Indigenous woman, mother, and grandmother out of Opaskwayak Cree Nation in Treaty 5 territory. Swampy Cree is the dialect in her community. She has been an urbanized Indigenous person for about 25 years. During that time, she has learned and understood Indigenous culture from many different perspectives, and respectfully utilizes and shares what she's learned with her children and grandchildren.
Tansay Natutamek, Denise McGillvary, Nitsigatsin. I'm from Opaskwayak Cree Nation. I am currently just learning how to use my language in a good way. I know few words. I would like to be able to have conversations and understand conversations and share that knowledge with my children and my grandchildren. So I don't even know where to start or how to begin. I do absolutely want to share that how envious I am sometimes when I see different cultures in the community being able to speak their language and openly share their communication. I admire those gifts that they get to carry. It's definitely something that I really, really want to share with my family, and I really, really cannot wait for the day that I can have a conversation in public with my children in Cree and have them respond as well in Cree. I think that's my goal in being a late learner. Like I said, I have few words, like basic commands. I can count to 10. I was able to count to 10 since I was 5 years old, so that's probably my longest running skill. I'm currently enrolled in a beginner Cree class offered by, I think it's a niche corporation. Chance Papanagis is the ED of the program that I'm taking. And James Kwesakapo is the instructor, which I am finding very enlightening. It's a great way to spend a couple hours twice a week, so I love that. I find challenging though with this program is that we're doing it through Zoom, so it's really not that personable. I feel where if we were in person, I feel like we would be much more apt to use the language with one another in person. Because sometimes I feel like, it's true, communication comes in all forms, right? So body language and facial expressions definitely are impacted in the language that you use, whatever language, all right? So culturally, those body language expressions are really important, I find. I don't know if I'm repeating myself here, but I want to get into one of the reasons why I delved deeply and committed myself for learning my language. I have grandchildren now. I'm a kukum, so it makes me very proud to be able to talk to my grandchildren in simple languages and have them understand simply. A funny story is my Nusimis, which is my grandchild Nusimis, growing up. Since he was an infant, I would sing him a lullaby in Cree, just made up from the words that I know. And again, just different commands. And he understands now. The funniest part of that is when he's into something that he shouldn't be into. His worst favorite word in Cree is mots. Because he knows exactly, right? He's understanding already, and I want to carry that on, and I want to carry it over to fuller sentences and be able to have him speak with me would be probably one of the greatest gifts I could give to myself, not alone my grandchildren, but, to myself, and just let them have their identity. For Nusimisuk, their mother is Cree, which is my daughter. Your papa is Ojibwe from Broken Head, so they've got two separate languages to learn. The other funny thing was my daughter was calling Miss OG Cree, and I'm pretty sure that's not how it works because Dad is Ojibwe and Mom's Cree, but I don't know for certain. That's some history that I'll have to look into. Yeah, and I'm just really proud to be able to have the opportunity to learn with other learners without being embarrassed, like being so advanced in age, mature, and learning from scratch. So I think one of the biggest lessons that I've learned so far in my life is that it's never too late, and you're never too old to take on new challenges and adventures, right? That's what I love about our culture, especially now with the younger generations who are really picking it up and carrying it forward for us, because we have lost a couple generations before us. So the ones coming after us, behind us, are the ones that are going to really make a change and make a difference. And I see that happening in our community in all different aspects and ways, yeah. Ryan has me here. I'm actually speechless now. So
What first got you on this language journey? What inspired you?
Well, knowing that I'm Cree, my mother and her sisters, my aunts and her siblings would speak Cree fluently to one another. Although I'm not quite sure, I don't understand why we didn't get the full experience. Like we got basic commands, etc. What's prompting me and what's my motivation is just being able to have my identity as a Cree woman, as a Cree grandmother, to be able to, one, have that confidence for myself in knowing who I am and identifying who I am. Two, letting my children and my grandchildren know that it's okay to try once again, to learn and to not be embarrassed because you don't know. And I feel this program that I'm taking with so many other beginners are people who have little knowledge and some words of the Cree language, and just coming together and sharing what we know and having, I guess, an educator teach us what we need to know. Yeah, and in this time of reconciliation, I feel it's important that if you have the opportunity to pick up your language or teachings or any type of knowledge from your family background, Indigenous or whatever, it's really now the time to start taking back what belongs to us.
You mentioned it can be challenging to do online courses and interactions over Zoom, but what has been your most exciting experience so far through this language program?
The most exciting part and my favorite piece is just being able to get together with other learners and sharing stories and sharing different ways we say things. And as a Cree people, there's always a joke in some way and somehow. There's always some funny happening some way, somehow. It's just really enlightening to know and to feel, I guess I don't have the word right now. It's just really good not to feel alone in my learning process, because I know that there's so many other people that are just have very few words but want to be able to communicate fully. Now that takes a lifetime of learning and knowing a little bit of what I do know. The most learning that our brains are going to allow us to do is, during the ages of 1 to 5, and I missed that milestone by a long shot. So it's important for me to try and instill some of that again into my grandchildren, right? And my children, because they understand basic commands. My 13-year-old daughter had come to me and had brought out one of my Cree books, and she said, "You know what, Mom? I really want to learn Cree too." And I never felt such pride. I was so proud of her. You know, she brought out the Cree book and she started from the beginning and she asked me questions. Well, what does this mean? And why are these letters the way they are? And how come this is this way and the other word is that way, but they mean the same thing? It's kind of confusing when you start from scratch in the written form. I feel like she left our conversation and our little lesson accomplished because she does have quite a few words. She's not that confident yet to say the words, but she does have the understanding. So I'm very proud of that. And I was talking with Chance again too, that, well, you know, because we're adults and now that our children are wanting to, perhaps we can, you know, have family type classes where we're learning together. I think that's the most important. I love that piece. I love that idea that we can learn with our children. Again, that takes away the stigma of being embarrassed and not knowing your identity. So, you know, those feelings of self-esteem are really important, especially moving forward.
You mentioned trying to find and build that safe space. What are some other challenges that you find in the language journey? Learning or finding a place for an individual or as a group to learn the language and trying to navigate those programs and services?
This is the first time I've ever approached a group process in learning. So the challenges of Zoom are just not being able to speak personally and like together over Zoom, because it's definitely challenging when 2 or 3 people want to say something at the same time, because it just can't happen on Zoom. Other challenges that I've faced throughout the years is different family members and people shaming or making feelings of embarrassment because you're using the words or you're not using the words in the right context. Or I know someone told me one time that I really sound funny when I try to speak Cree, and that really affected me in a negative way. And I never thought, you know, I have pretty tough skin, but, you know, it really did make an impact on how I communicate with this person now. So, and then it's a family member too. And I guess it's kind of the pot and the kettle situation, because I don't often hear them trying to use the language. So that's just, you know, I don't know what it is. All I know for myself is that if I make an effort and I try, the outcome really doesn't matter to anybody else but myself, because I know that I'm doing the right thing for myself.
So the Government of Canada has had a long history of discriminatory practices and regulations forced upon First Nations and other Indigenous groups of people. And we still see those systems and legislation. Sometimes it feels that perception and progress has been made, but other times feels like it hasn't. From your perspective, what is your view on this change? Do you think things have changed?
That's a really tough question, because in certain circles and communities, you do see the movement. You do see the little nudges of understanding and acceptance. But then there are the people who it's just ingrained in them, right? And they're, you know, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, as they say, right? As far as my community and the people that my circle, I guess I want to call it, along with my children's schools and stuff like that, I really do see an understanding. Like, I've never had an experience with my children where we were stigmatized. Although I do, you know, when we go shopping and stuff like that, I do have the security profiling me sometimes. But I speak up, and like, it's usually a store that I go to regularly. So one, I'm annoyed because it's one of my regular stops, and I do speak up for myself, right? So It really is annoying, I guess, to walk into a store. And I think that's the most racist things that I've experienced for myself. I know it can get really deep and ugly for most people, but I too can be white passing as well, right? So that's really, really hard, you know? I don't think in my lifetime that it's going to be smooth as we would expect it to be. Like reconciliation is probably going to take 100 years, right? So that's how long it took to recognize that, hey, you know what? It's a problem. So, you know, sometimes it takes double time to fix the situation depending on the effort.
For your language journey, do you feel that there has been adequate resources available for you during this journey?
Yes, I know there are adequate resources out there. It's just the approach. For me, I was really not comfortable in going to like the Manitoba Indigenous Cultural Center on my own and just starting that learning process there because I really didn't know how to start. So when I seen on social media the ad for Chauncey's program, you know, I jumped on that because I wasn't having to go out of my comfort zone. I was at home and, you know, we've been involved since January with the program. So we've all got a pretty good rapport. And I appreciate that part, right? I think that's the best way to learn is in a group, especially when it comes to language and culture. There's a lot of people who can be critical, and it's the older generations because that's just they're older. Life was way different before, right? So they're not as gentle as sometimes some people would need when learning or making mistakes. So you know that's a concern, and I've heard again the embarrassment that is placed on someone when they're making a mistake or. You know, perhaps they're just speaking for the first time and getting tongue-tied, and people being critical definitely is an obstacle for many, I'm sure.
For someone who's inspired by your message, what sort of advice would you give them as they begin to take the first steps in their language and cultural journey?
I would say go for it. Find a space where you're going to feel comfortable. Do the research. Look it up. Talk to your relatives. Talk to your peers. The younger generations now are the ones who are opening the doors and allowing for people to learn. Like I'm old school myself, right? And how did I ever know that I would be learning from someone 20 years, you know, younger than me and being really open to that? You know, I love that aspect of it. And just like, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. I think you have to face your fears and really come to understanding your identity. For me, if I don't do this and I don't follow through all the way, that's not only going to affect my self-esteem and my self-confidence, but definitely is a lesson for my children that commitment to finish a project before giving up, like just seeing it all the way through. And then surround yourself with people who have likewise goals. I think my biggest vision right now is the language camp that's going to be happening at the end of our series. And I'm looking forward to that. One, because I can't wait to be able to use the language. Two, finally meet the people that I see every week online, right? And then hopefully be able to have some conversations in Cree, all the way in Cree. Kinanaskamitin, thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. I really appreciate having a voice and being allowed to have a voice in my learning journey. Like I am a grandmother who is very proud of who I am as a Cree woman, but at the same time, there's a little emptiness because I don't know my language, you know? I can't walk down the street and have a conversation with my children. Like I said in the beginning, I'm really envious and of other cultures when they're able to speak so openly and freely in their own language. I really want to see that for our future generations. I may not be here to see it, but, you know, if we can get the wheels rolling, maybe my grandchildren will be able to see it.
Multicultural is located on Treaty 1 territory, the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and the national homeland of the Red River Métis.